And so I think we're about ready to begin. For our fourth basic setup class, we're going to learn how to build dashboards. So dashboards are a combination of different types of schedule views, daily, weekly, monthly schedule views, mixed with other schedule-related content. And it is through these dashboards that you're going to be able to see who's working on a particular day, who might be working on a particular job assignment. And so when creating dashboards, keep in mind that there's two types of dashboards that you can build. There are web dashboards, which are what all your web portal users will be seeing the schedules through. And those are fairly simplified dashboards. They are nothing more than a collection of shifts that have been put together on a single page or multiple pages. Then there are desktop dashboards. Desktop dashboards offer a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more customization. Desktop dashboards are typically used by administrators, since most of you who are going to be accessing the desktop application are administrators. You're going to learn how to organize all of those different schedule related screens or windows into something that fits your needs. Now, as you create these dashboards, keep in mind that only administrators should be able to create these. And in other words, as administrators, you are going to create web dashboards for your users and desktop dashboards for anyone that will need access to those. You're not going to give them permissions to modify those. It's just important that we sort of bake in everything that these guys are going to need to see, take those things into consideration when we're building them, and then we just allow people to access the dashboard views that we have created for them. Now we're going to learn how to create desktop dashboards first. So I have the Schedule App program loaded up. And at the very top of the screen, I'm going to click on the Edit Dashboard button. When we do this, the screen will turn a purple or bluish color, and you'll see a main screen designer appear. Let's bring that front and center for a moment. Now, if you do not have any existing dashboards, then the only option you're going to see on the main screen designer is this one here called Add Profile. Let's move the main screen designer over. Let's click on Add Profile. And we're going to be asked to enter a profile name. So the profile is what we call that dashboard view. Depending on your department's needs, you might have multiple profiles. You might have a profile for public works and a profile for finance. On the police side of things, you might have a dashboard profile for the patrol and detective schedules and another one for administrators. Now, for our purposes here, I am going to just create one profile for my department. And I'll just call that VCS Police. And when I click on the OK button, you'll see the dashboard profile listed up top. We still have a blank screen to work with. So within this blank screen, we're going to be able to subdivide it. we're also going to be able to add additional tabs or pages. So these tabs or pages will be used to separate things like daily schedules, weekly schedule, and monthly schedule views. And then these buttons here up top will be used to split those individual pages up. So I'm going to show you a very basic dashboard profile. And I'm going to start by creating my pages at the bottom. I like to start there. So I only have one page here called Default Tab. I'm going to use my main screen designer to edit the tab name. So whichever tab I have or I'm currently in, which I only have one, will be the tab name I'm going to change. And I'm going to call this one my daily schedule. When I click on the OK button, you now see the name has changed. Of course, I'm going to need more than a daily schedule, so let's use the main screen designer to add another tab. I'll call this one my weekly schedule. And I'm going to continue this until I have daily, weekly, and monthly views. So as I'm doing that, it's creating a brand new page. Each page is still blank. We'll learn how to add content in there in a moment. Okay, so now that I at least have a couple of tabs, we're going to start adding content to each page. So while I have the daily schedule tab or page marked, I am going to split the screen up so that I have individual windows for each shift represented in my daily schedule. Now, using these buttons on the top center portion, these buttons will allow you to create a horizontal split or a vertical split. So I'll use the first one to create a horizontal split across the screen. And then I'm going to create a vertical split just like that. So every time you have an empty block, you can further subdivide that window into multiple blocks if necessary. But for now, we'll keep things simple. I'll delete these extra splits by clicking on the red button for the boxes that I want to remove, until I'm left with just 4 blocks. We're going to use the green button on the top left portion of the empty boxes to find content. So let's do that with the one on the top left. We're going to click on the green button. And on the window that pops up, you're going to see a list of what we call active tile windows. This is a list of about 40 different types of content that can be added to any one of those empty blocks I just created on this page. Now, for my daily schedule page, I'm going to click on the daily schedule active tile. And in the middle portion, this is going to show you a preview of what that active tile will look like if you decide to place it on your dashboard. So in about a minute or two, you'll see something pop up in there. But before we do that, over on the far right, you're going to see the properties that you can establish for that active tile window. Now you're going to notice that as you go through the catalog of active tile windows, each one of them is going to have a set of properties. So you're going to choose how you want to configure that type of content before you place it somewhere on your dashboard. Now the daily schedule will be used quite often within the profiles that you create. So this serves as a great example. And in fact, I can even resize the window so you can get an idea of all of the different settings that you can apply. From the very top, you'll want to set the timer. What that means is that this active tile window will auto-refresh based on whatever refresh rate you've established here. In this case, it's 180 seconds, and you can obviously change that if you would like. Now, this is handy because as people are posting any type of schedule-related information onto that shift, you want to make sure that everyone else can see it. So this is allowing the system to auto-refresh and look for any changes being made onto a particular schedule. Now, you can choose to give the active tile window a title. Now, for the daily schedule window, I'm going to skip that step, and I'm going to go right to the day shift that I want to place in that active tile window. Now, under days future and days past, we're going to leave that set to 0. That means the schedule that we're going to see will always be for the current day. And in other words, if I'm on September 15th and I'm looking at the patrol day shift, I want to see it for the 15th. If I was to enter a 1 under days past, it would show me September 14th schedule. We're going to leave mine set to 0 for now, and we're going to move on to the sort drop-down menu. I'm going to leave mine set to title and seniority. That means when I'm looking at the patrol day shift, I'm going to see the highest ranking people at the top of the list and then everyone else below it. Now, there's a few checkboxes that you may choose to set whenever you're adding a daily schedule, such as show denied time off. You may also choose to show work times. Those are probably the two most important checkboxes I would consider marking. If you're going to be using the system to assign vehicles, radios, or any other type of schedule details, you can go ahead and mark those. Now, you created schedule details in class number 2. So if you created any customized schedule details, you should see those categories in that window, and then you can choose to display them on the daily schedules. Now I can click on the Apply button, in which case it's going to show me a preview of what that shift would look like. And perhaps I didn't choose the right one. Let me choose a different one. There we go. That's better. Okay. Now I can click on the Apply and Use button, and my day shift has now been added onto my dashboard. Now, I may not be able to see it just yet because I am still in the editor mode. But as soon as the screen has a chance to refresh, you will see the names listed along with any time off and possibly overtime and job assignments displayed as well. So I already have my day shift posted on here. Let's click on the green button on the empty box to the right. Let's choose the daily schedule again. I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to select my night shift. I'm going to choose the same sort options that I did before. I'm always going to display denied time off and worked times. And I'm going to choose any additional job assignments or schedule details that I may want displayed on that window. Again, I can choose to preview the content before I place it on the dashboard. To place it on there, though, I will click on the Apply and Use button. At the very bottom, let's use another daily schedule active tile, but this time I will choose Administration. We'll leave everything else that we've been using set, the same sort order. The checkbox for Show Denied Time Off and Show Work Times. But under Administration, maybe these folks aren't assigned to vehicles, so it's not necessarily something that we need to see or will be used for that particular shift. So in that case, just click on Apply and Use and apply it to your schedule. The last shift I'm going to add to this page is my Detective Bureau schedule. And again, if vehicles are not used for that particular shift, or there's a particular type of schedule detail that you created but is not applicable to that shift, then leave it unmarked. And then click on Apply and Use. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've done so far. Let's move that main screen designer back where we can see all of the options. And we're going to click on the Save button. Very important to do this anytime you create a new profile or make a modification to an existing profile. And when you're done saving, exit out of the editor mode. Now, using the calendar function up top, or better yet, the arrows, if I navigate to another day, then of course it's going to load up the 16th, the 17th, and the 18th schedule. You click on the Today button when it brings us back to the 15th. The reason why I did that is to just illustrate that one setting. If I go back into the editor, this time we're not going to add content, we're going to modify content. So I'm not going to click on the green button now. I'm going to click on the editor button below it. That brings up the active tile window that we're using along with the property settings. So going back to the days future and days past option, if I had entered a 1 under days past and clicked on Apply and Use, now let's save that change. Now, as you can see, it's showing September 15th for all of the other shifts, but this one is showing the 14th. Okay. So that's fine if you want to create a multi-day view for a specific shift. That's fine. You can have every block here display the same shift, but one has days past 1, days past 2, days past 3, days past 4 to create a multi-day view within one page. Okay. Let's click on the Edit Dashboard button up top one more time. Let's click on the Editor button. Let's switch that back to 0. And let's take a look at a few other options. So now that we have some content on our daily schedule, you may have noticed that we have a couple of extra buttons that we've been given. Whenever you add content to an empty window or tile, you now get these buttons. And what this is allowing you to do is it's allowing you to add or subdivide this block. So here's a great example of where we might do that. Let's save what we have. Let's exit out. And you'll see that there's plenty of space here, plenty of unused space. So we may choose to modify the dashboard, and we can use these buttons to split up the screen. So if you can see this clearly, you'll see that we have the two original split buttons. That's the horizontal and vertical. If you use either one of those, it's going to blank out that entire box. If you use these, where the yellow portions are, it will create a split and move the existing content to wherever you see the yellow bar. So let's click on the horizontal split where the white content is at the bottom and the yellow content is at the top. Click on the button, and it pushes everything that you had in that box into the top portion, and then gives you a brand new blank box below it. Now let's say my day and night shifts only have a few people, so I don't need that much space in order to display the schedule. Well, now I can click and drag my night shift into that new empty space. Now that vacates that one window, and I can use that for other things. I could do the same at the bottom. The administration schedule might have 2 or 3 people working on it, and Detective Bureau only has 1 person. So let's move all of that content and gain some of that space back. So now we have that entire space over on the right that we can use to display other things. Maybe you have other shifts. Okay. Some of you might have 8, 9, or 10 different shifts that you want displayed on a particular page. Now, aside from using the buttons to resize, you can always manually resize. Just click on the border and adjust it to fit your needs. Now, when you're doing this, my recommendation here is to just leave a small gap, just like the one that you're seeing through this bluish haze. Keeping in mind that whenever someone takes time off, they are never removed from the shift. Okay? So on a day shift like this where I have 5 people, I'm not going to see any less than 5. So you might have people working overtime on that shift. So you just want to allow enough space for those people to be displayed. Now, over to the right, let's make use of some of this empty space. I might not need to add additional shifts, but let's click on the green button here and take a look at some commonly used content for our desktop dashboards. Well, we have one for extra duty assignments. So if there's anyone working an extra duty job, you might want a window where that information is displayed. Over to the right, you have your properties or settings for that active tile. If you would like to give it a name, you can go ahead and enter that in, extra duty jobs. And at the bottom, you have the days past and days future field again. Now, for some of these active tile windows, this means something a little different. For the daily schedule, it meant on which day do you want to see the schedule for. For just about every other active tile option you have here, this allows you to select a date range. Maybe I want to see the next 7 days worth of extra duty jobs. When I click on the Apply button, it allows me to preview what that would look like. Let's click on Apply and Use, and in a moment we'll see what that looks like on our daily view. Below, let's add an hourly validation tile. Now, you're going to learn how to set validation in your system in class number 6. You're going to learn how to create a grid like the one you're looking at now that will show you what your minimum staffing levels are for any part of the day. When you do this, you're going to be able to have a grid like mine that's tracking hour by hour what your needs are. So now that I have my daily schedule built, let's click on the Save button. Let's exit out of the editor mode, and there we are. There's my shifts, my extra duty activity, and here's my minimum staffing requirements, which tracks my overages, also shows me who's working on any particular day and what skill set they contribute towards. So that's a little preview of what's to come in class number 6. Okay. Now our dashboard is not ready just yet. Let's go back into the Edit Dashboard mode, and let's take a look at some of the additional tabs that we added. So when I click on the weekly schedule, it brings me to the blank screen. We're going to click on the green button on the top left portion, and from our active tile catalog, we're going to find our weekly schedule. Once again, you can set the timer for how often you want that to refresh. And you can choose which groups or departments you want displayed on that weekly schedule. Now, if you're creating a dashboard profile for a specific department or groups of departments, you can handpick what those people will see. Now, I'm not going to get that picky. I'm going to click on All Groups. Under the Sort mode, I probably don't want everyone listed by name. I want them listed by the actual groups. And then I'm going to choose the week start date. Because this is a weekly schedule, it doesn't know if you consider Monday or Sunday or anything else as, to be considered as the first day of the work week. Let's click on Apply and Use at the top. Let's move on to the monthly schedule, and you're going to notice the settings for that one are actually quite similar. When we click on the green button, we're going to select Monthly Schedule Grid. Let's set the timer. Let's set which groups we want to see, and let's click on Apply and Use. Okay, so saving our work and then exiting out of the editor mode, I now have my daily schedule, my weekly schedule, organized by groups, and my monthly schedule organized the same way. So as I was saying before, if you choose to create multiple profiles, more than what I have here, you may be doing that because there's a specific department or group of departments, and you want them to all see the same thing. So you can handpick which groups those people will see when they're looking at the profile created for them. Now, on the police side, my recommendations would be keep things simple. This is really for an administrator, and they probably want to see the basic schedule views, and there might be a couple of other types of content you may end up adding, but you probably don't need more than one profile. Now, for those of you, in a more kind of municipal type environment, you have a DPW, but you might have multiple groups or shifts within that DPW. So you might create a profile called DPW or Public Works, where all of those related shifts and departments are represented. And then you might have another profile where the tax collectors' schedules would be posted. And maybe the tax collector really doesn't care about anyone else but their single department. So you can build a profile just for them that displays just their schedules or what's relevant to them. You can create as many profiles as you feel is necessary, and you can grant access to any one of them. So if there's a profile that you only want certain people to see, you will be able to do that. Okay. Now, as you move forward, you may choose to add additional pages or modify whatever you have created so far. As long as your people have access to that profile, any changes that you make to them will be automatically fed to them. So you're not maintaining a separate profile for each employee. It's for the whole department or maybe for a whole group. And as you make changes, they will dynamically be updated to everyone else using the system. Okay, so the last thing I'll mention before I take questions on this is, if you find yourself in a position of creating multiple profiles, not only will you be able to grant privileges to those profiles, but you'll also be able to set defaults so that if someone from a specific group logs onto the screen, you want to make sure that they're seeing the profile that's most relevant to them. Even if they are able to go beyond that and see another profile to see what's happening in another department, you'll want to make sure that you set them up with a default so that they're not hunting around for their schedule. Okay. Are there any questions on creating a dashboard profile for the desktop side at this time? Okay. If there's no questions, we're ready to move on to building a web dashboard, which is a far simpler process. But even before we do that, you know, under your desktop dashboard, I always liked the daily roster, and I always like to have a page set up for that. And so I'll go ahead and I'll just add one real quick. I'll add a new page, and when I click on the green button, there's an active tile already called that daily roster. So I'll use the timer. I'll select all of the groups, and then I'll select which job assignments or schedule details I want included in that roster. So when I click on Apply and Use, and let's save and exit, you're left with a list showing you everyone who is scheduled to work today, their hours, any job assignments that they have. If anyone is on the schedule due to overtime, you're going to see the reason for that. If anyone scheduled to work today is on time off, you're going to see those details as well. And you'll even have the option, as you'll see later on, to add additional comments for any person working. And what's nice about that roster is that you can always print it out. I mean, it's just, you know, many of you might have been using something similar to this for years. And so it's a nice, you know, nice page you can set up for yourself. If you want to print it out, you can certainly do so. Now, aside from the basic schedule stuff that I showed you, daily, weekly, monthly schedule views, many of you are going to end up using the extra duty billing module, the training module. You're going to be using open shifts to fill overtime opportunities. All of those functions have active tile windows associated with them. So as you go through your advanced training classes, you can just sort of gradually build up your dashboards to include more and more information. So let's go ahead and move on to building web dashboards. And to do that, we're going to click on the Administration drop-down menu. And from the Company Center, we're going to select Web Dashboard. It's the very last one on the list. And so, just like we had to create a profile in the desktop version, we're creating profiles for the web version. Now, because the web portal was designed for basic users and supervisors, we're not offering as much customization here. We're trying to keep it simple. So I will click on the New button, and I will create a profile with the same name that I used for the desktop. And I have up to 6 different shifts that I can put on a page. Now, the web portal already has fixed weekly and monthly schedules, so you don't have to worry about creating those. They're already done. Here, instead, just select the shifts that you want. Okay. And you have up to 6 that you can add here. Now I can even add a page. So when you click on Add Page, it shows up with a brand new tab, and you can continue adding additional shifts. Once you're done, click on the Save button. Now, for each one of these shifts, though, I also wanted to point out that you can define the sort order for each block differently if you would like. For my purposes here, I'll stick with titles and seniority because that's what I was using in my desktop versions of my profiles. Let's click on the Save button, and we're done. So let's just bring up our web portal here for a moment. Okay, so let's log on, and I'll do that with my administrative privileges. So as I mentioned, the daily, monthly, and weekly schedule views are more or less fixed in that they're always located under this drop-down menu. But when I click on the daily schedule, you'll see that I now have a profile called VCS Police. So this profile can be assigned to any group of people as a default. So if you have a view for patrol, a view for communications, or on the municipal side, a view for DPW, a view for finance, you can go ahead and assign those as defaults. That way, I might have the ability to look at any other view, but when I enter this screen, it should always be defaulted to, again, the schedule that's most relevant to me. Now, you're going to learn a little bit more about security in the final class. That's class number 7. So based on the dashboard profiles that you create, you're going to learn how to assign those to your users. Now, are there any questions on creating web dashboards? As you can see, a far more simpler process. Okay. Any questions at all, either on the web or the desktop dashboards? Okay, so then that covers everything that we had on the agenda for today. The last thing I'll mention is for those of you that are migrating over from the legacy application, you may have already migrated over your shift views, as we used to refer to it in the legacy system. So you can still use what I taught you to modify whatever you brought over. But again, you might already have the profiles themselves already created. Now, I'll also mention that we have a document that should have been provided to you when you registered for this class. Otherwise, you should be able to download the document from the materials section on Go to Training. If not, you will receive an email with the same document. So that's a great, great tool to help you in the process of building these. All right, folks, if there isn't any further questions at this time, I would just like to thank you for attending. I will remain on standby for anyone requiring assistance in setting these up. I'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, thank you and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.